Hey paisanos, it's me, Hamish Steele, and welcome to Season 2 of Super Mario Moment. That's right, we're back with a fresh coat of Mario paint, but the same quest to mention every morsel of the Mario multiverse. Same task, different mask. God, I wish I hadn't said that. Joining me on today's episode for Season 1, Episode 1, I had one of my brothers talking about Mario Kart World, so it felt only appropriate for Season 2, Episode 1 to bring on my other brother to talk about a different Mario-themed world. I am joined by writer, DJ, and co-host of Games on Film. It's my other brother from the same mother, Rory Steele.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me, Hamish. It's very nice to be here. I'm thrilled to be kicking off Season 2 with you. I very much enjoyed listening to all the episodes of Season 1, and I can't wait to talk about Mario with you. Not like we haven't done that in our private lives for, well, I won't say your age.
Thank you very much. I like to remain a mystery. Thank you for coming on. I'm sorry it took so long, but as the episodes rolled on, I realized that this topic would make for a good premiere episode of Season 2. I'll leave what we're talking about, even though you've read the description of the episode, as a little bit of a mystery because it is different. It's our first time not actually talking about a game, or are we? We will find out. But obviously, I know who you are and I know your history of games, but for the benefit of our lovely listeners and viewers, tell me a little bit about the Rory Steele story.
Yeah, so I guess I'm your brother. Let's start. I suppose in terms of, game-related stuff, we can get a bit more into my kind of Nintendo/Mario upbringing in a moment. But yes, my name is Rory Steele. And I used to, I guess it's sort of dormant, maybe it'll rear its head again, but I used to co-run and DJ at Gamer Disco, which was a club night mostly in London, a few different venues in London, but also we did after parties and shows and other kind of events around the UK. And that was a video games club night. And we often would, as a result, have Nintendo titles, Mario titles especially. And I would DJ and play chiptune and video game music remixes. I think we did do a 10th of March Mario event in Brighton at one point. So I prepared a special Mario mix for that. We also did a big collaboration with DJ Yoda on a history of gaming show, which premiered at the BFI London Film Festival at the IMAX way back when, and then got performed in other places too. But yeah, at the Gamer Disco club nights, we would often have the UK Super Mario Kart champion, Sami Shetan, come and run tournaments with us. We did one event actually, which was called Mario Kart Madness, I think, where we had at that point every iteration of Mario Kart available to play, including we brought, I think, Mario Kart Super Circuit on the Game Boy Advance as well. I've actually, I don't know if I told you, but before I moved to Australia, where I currently am, I did, I think, pinch your Mario Kart GBA SP. I mean, your Mario GBA SP. Sorry.
No, it's very, very welcome.
I took it with me. Sorry. And also one of the things which we enjoyed doing, we did a thing called Win, Lose, or Mario Paint, which was like win, lose, or draw. But we used a copy of Mario Paint on the Super Nintendo with the Super Nintendo mouse, and we would give people video game related clues, and they had to. The challenge was more about trying to use the Super Nintendo mouse to try and draw the clues to their teammates and then have them guess correctly in the allotted time. So that was always good fun to do. But yeah, aside from Gamer Disco, just, video games I enjoy very much. And of course, as our brother Harry would have mentioned on that first episode of season 1, we co-host the Games on Film podcast, looking at video game movies or TV shows based on video games. And we've obviously covered a few Mario titles as a result of that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with games.
Well, we obviously all grow up playing Mario and Nintendo, but I've always also associated you with a few other games because I feel like you've always had your own specific taste and your own you're drawn to some quirkier titles and some non-Nintendo stuff. So you used to, and when I mean used to, I mean like very early days of the GeoCities fan site, you used to have a Resident Evil fan website.
I did, the Necropolis, as it was called.
Mm-hmm.
But as we were a very Nintendo household, it was Resident Evil games on Nintendo consoles specifically.
Yes.
So at the time, I remember being like, oh, there's really not much happening, because I think there was Resident Evil 2 on the N64, Resident Evil Gaiden on the Game Boy Color.
Mm-hmm.
And that was sort of about it for a while. And I was like, this is it. No more. The Necropolis I'm shutting up shop. Only for Capcom to do their big, what was it? Like Big 5 or something reveal.
Yeah.
And they revealed the Resident Evil GameCube remake. And then, Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil 4 originally on the GameCube. So I was like, this is my time. This is my time. Resident Evil on Nintendo consoles is going to be that way forever. And then, obviously, like my interest in creating a website kind of petered out quite quickly. But yeah, hey, Resident Evil's back on Nintendo Switch too.
Yeah, Resident Evil 9 is coming out, on the Switch. And I think also your love of Resident Evil led you to us getting a Dreamcast to get Code Veronica, which I think was a big deal for you.
Yeah, I mean, we, as you sort of mentioned, we're very much a Nintendo household. We had like all the consoles, and obviously Mario was like a constant in our lives as a result. So, I mean, just going way back, like, yeah, I remember us getting the Nintendo, and I think it was because we had played Mario at a friend's house, or it's our father's friend's sons. They had a Nintendo. I think that was the first time I saw Mario in action. So it was always like Mario 1, 2, and 3. And then, later on, it was like Super Mario World, Mario 64. And it was always like on those games, it's like, as much as I love those Mario games, I think on the Nintendo, like, if I'm being honest with myself, the platform game I loved most on the NES was Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers.
Yeah.
And I think later, even with like Mario 64 and the N64, I was like, that's great, but I kind of like Banjo-Kazooie just like a tiny bit more.
Yeah.
And then throughout that, like Mario Kart, obviously, like, a huge constant. But yeah, I think we did get a PlayStation sort of around about the same time as, maybe a bit after the N64, but like this was much later, like after the peak of PlayStation.
Yeah,
but
we had one for a while, but we didn't have like a lengthy collection of PlayStation games.
No, it was mainly Dancing Stage Euromix and World's Scariest Police videos. And Music 2000. So yeah, I recently dusted off Music 2000 and released on Bandcamp my productions from that era. If anyone's interested in listening to some 25-year-old PlayStation quality bangers.
I'll link them in the show notes.
Thank you. But yeah, Dreamcast was definitely, Resident Evil Code Veronica led me to Dreamcast, and to this day, like the Sega Dreamcast is definitely like my console. It's, if anyone said like, what's your favorite machine, console, gaming platform of all time? Yeah, no question, straight away I'd say Sega Dreamcast. And it's not like I even had all the games for it, but the games that did have, I loved, and I think just the sort of like aesthetic and the attitude, particularly of that era, a lot of those games were like arcade conversions, and it was all about fun. It was all about play. A lot of people now look back on that era as very much like blue sky gaming, not like the, blue sky thinking or the social media, but more just like games like just filled with like sunshine, brightness, and just like, just sort of like attitude to sort of try and just make games that were just entertain, enjoyable, and a lot of stuff you maybe haven't like seen or experienced before. So yeah, Shenmue, big love of my life. Jet Set Radio, greatest love of all. And but even stuff like, like Power Stone and
Choo Choo
Space
Rocket,
Channel 5, Choo Choo Rocket, House of the
Skies of
Dead 2.
Skies of Arcadia.
Yes, Skies of Arcadia. I mean, just, glory days. And, they always say the candle that burns brightest burns half as long. And it was definitely a time I look back on very fondly. And it's not just nostalgia. It was very good.
I think of that. It obviously wasn't the first. I'm not saying that this is like factual, but as a kid, it was the first console where I was really aware of art style and art direction, because up until then, the games we'd played, I always got the sense that, Mario 64 was like trying its best to represent Mario, and it wasn't thinking too much about like art direction. But I think the combo of stuff like Jet Set Radio and Shenmue existing on the same console, where one is going for photorealism, which in my head it still is, even though I know it's not. And then Jet Set Radio, which is aggressively going for like, it's the first time I saw cell shading and stuff. So I think of it as like very important. And I guess growing up, I was less aware of it being a kind of flop console or it being the end of Sega's hardware, because to me it was, really next gen and cool and new.
And also even just like, I think it was probably the first time that 3D games were looking good. Because like, I mean, 3D games on like PlayStation, like, lovely kind of chunky polygons. We go back to that, and it's nice to see like all those indie developers harking back to play PS1 sort of era stuff. And like Sega Saturn as well, like, it's a bit kind of like not the nicest looking sort of textures and things. And I think, that was the first time where it's just like, oh, this is really, making the most of what 3D games could look like. But also, I mean, like Soul Calibur and stuff just looked amazing. But also there was still a lot of great kind of 2D stuff. Like we had Street Fighter Alpha 3 and, there's still, and I think Dreamcast as well is like very good, or a lot of people like it for the sort of shoot 'em ups, bullet hell kind of stuff at the time, which obviously has, distinctive art styles, 2D looking things. But yeah, just like a great era for creativity, both in terms of gameplay, but also in terms of aesthetic, style, and music.
What was that Die Hard style game on a boat with a pirate?
Yep, Dynamite Cop. The sequel to Die Hard Arcade, which was officially licensed for Sega Saturn and arcades, and then they released Dynamite Cop, where it's technically a sequel, but stripped of all the Die Hard, Bruce Willis alike stuff. But
I think they should merge the series again, and they should make a new Die Hard movie where the villain is like a castle, like a Castlevania-looking pirate with a claw or whatever. No, I love the Dreamcast, and I'm glad we got to talk about it, because as much as I love Mario, we are not Mario purists. I love all games equally, I guess. So let's start shifting into our main topic. For the first time ever in Mario Moment history, we are not talking about an actual game, although there's game elements, as I'm sure we'll discuss. We are talking about Super Nintendo World, the theme park. And we're going to start this conversation by having a little look at how Nintendo first unveiled this project. Sorry that lasted so long, but it's hard to cut off Brat herself. Yes, that was Charlie XCX on top of the flagpole, dancing around with Nintendo characters.
I just on the potential casting for Super Mario movie sequels, but Charlie XCX as Pauline.
Rosalina, or she should be contacting her. Well, she knows Mario according to that trailer, so she should be on the phone right now. Mario, get me in the movie.
I mean, I follow her on Letterboxd, and she's making her acting debuts and various things at the moment. So yeah,
she was rumored to be in Greta Gerwig's Narnia, and then a different dark-haired temptress was cast as the witch.
Okay.
But I feel like the level of acting required for the Mario movie, if we are to remember some of the stellar performances, I think she has a shot.
Yeah.
By the time this episode goes out, we might already know who's playing Rosalina, but we've just found out that the Mario Galaxy movie is coming. So, yes, today we are talking about Super Nintendo World. It is what growing up would have been a dream come true, and I'm interested to know what we think about it in reality. We have both been to Super Nintendo World. For those who don't know, it is a Universal Studios themed land that is currently open. I think it first opened at Universal Studios Japan, but has since expanded to Hollywood, Epic Universe in Orlando, Florida, and currently under construction at Universal Studios Singapore. In British news, there has recently been a Universal Studios UK or Europe announced, which I'm excited for because I love a theme park. And concept art does not seem to suggest straight away that Nintendo's coming, but there seems to also be a lot of space that has not been decided upon. So the idea that there could be a Nintendo theme park in my home country is an absolute dream come true. The park was delayed several times due to COVID, announcing a big theme park, which is not the biggest in the world, is a risky move when a global pandemic has been announced. I believe it was first officially announced in 2015 as a partnership, but then it was sort of the worst kept secret in the theme park community, thanks to drones and helicopters and how brightly colored this land is. I remember before it was unveiled, there was lots of tantalizing photos taken of the land. And then it was officially launched, I believe, in December 2021.
That sounds about right.
Very, social distancing, masks, everything. Probably a soft influencer launch. I went to the Hollywood one, I believe in 2022. When did you first go to Super Nintendo World?
It would have been October 2022 at Universal Studios Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there on a business trip, not Mario business, but other business. But I made it my business to go to Super Nintendo World. And it was funny because it was a week before I arrived. They finally eased some of the COVID restrictions because Japan had up to that point been incredibly restricted. Hence, things like the Olympic Games taking place, being postponed and then taking place effectively behind closed doors with only the athletes and I guess the referees or umpires, etc. as well, being able to actually be there for it. So it was very good timing that I could actually go and see it for myself. And yeah, here's a picture of what I took on that day. As you can see, it was a glorious, beautiful day, clear blue skies. I mean, it would have been nice to have some clouds with eyes floating around, but I think, you're not going to get that in real life. So
in contrast, I went on quite an overcast day, and here's my my view of the same land. I had lots more photos, but I went with my boyfriend Luke, and he did not want the photos to be shared because he looked absolutely miserable because he was 2 weeks after I think 2 or 3 weeks after having his appendix removed, and
God.
the doctor said, "You're not planning anything rigorous, are you?" And knowing in his head that he had booked a trip to Disneyland and Universal Studios. So he was not feeling his best, but after a few gentle rides in Nintendo Land, we plucked up the courage to go on Jurassic Park, and then we figured that he was probably okay.
Okay, good.
But you went on a glorious day. Neither
And
of
it
us.
was
Sorry, go on.
and it was October as well, so Halloween is an increasingly big deal in Japan, and especially people go to USJ for Halloween. So when I went in the evening, they had serial killers with chainsaws running around the park. They had a Resident Evil interactive thing. They had a Chucky from Child's Play, Spook House. But it was quite funny. Because of, there's still kids around and stuff, they had areas which were called zombie-free zones, of which Super Nintendo World. So like if you wanted to exit the park without, being attacked by, someone in a mask or a zombie or a monster or something, like if you had small children, you could like be escorted through the zombie-free zones of like Snoopy Land or whatever. Yeah, I arrived in Japan, and then basically I was at Nintendo World within sort of 48 hours. And when I arrived, a combination of the jet lag and that sort of excitement you have before Christmas, I did not sleep a wink that night. I was just like, I'm going to Super Nintendo World. I'm going to Super Nintendo World. And I kind of booked the sort of express ticket so I could get guaranteed entry at a certain time. It's so busy, and it's quite a complicated process. But I'm so glad I did, because I think I was in that whole Super Nintendo World land. Apart from I accidentally took a detour into Hogwarts, and I went boo, and then left immediately. Yeah, I got to Super Nintendo World, and I was in there in the entirety of that park for maybe about 5 hours. I really kind of made the most of my time there. But I understand that at least the Hollywood version is maybe a bit smaller than the Japanese park.
Yeah, I mean, the whole park itself is small, I suppose. It's also very busy. So as much as they do a great job with your immersion to a degree, the photos don't even do it justice, because everything is moving like it does in a, anytime if you see any coins on the picture, they're like spinning like mad, and everything on the piranha plants are moving around. It looks incredible, but you are looking at it through crowds and crowds of people taking selfies. And I do think this is definitely a kind of selfie attraction, which is not always my favorite type of sort of thing, because I just like, I don't know, you saw my picture, I'm not posting that anywhere. But it is small, and the thing they've done in order to kind of utilize the space as much as possible is that they've sort of dug into the ground, so it's kind of arranged a bit like a quarry or something, with kind of tiers of levels. So when you're in the middle area, it's very small, but you can like see a lot, and then as you kind of walk up, you get all these kind of nice views.
Yeah, and it's got that kind of forced perspective as well. So it's designed to make the world look kind of bigger and deeper than it actually is. And even just sort of like entering the park, like you go through the warp pipe and you hear the kind of noises of the warp pipe, and then you come through and you've entered like Princess Peach's castle, and it's this lobby area, and it looks just like it does in Mario 64, and you've got like lenticular pictures, like the paintings that you jump into, and you see like the stained glass of Peach, and you just kind of come into the world, and you see that in front of you, and it's like one of the most magical sights I've ever seen in my life. It was just, tears in my eyes, kind of beautiful. And yeah, as you say, seeing all those things moving around, and yeah, it is crowded, it is a bit chaotic. You've got music, you've got noises, you've got, crowds around you, but still, like, it was such a beautiful, perfect moment. And I think the reason why it works is because, like Mario, the Mushroom Kingdom is such a vivid world. It's in many ways like a fairy tale theme park land in of itself. And I think just what makes, one of the successes of the Mario franchise is down to that world, and also just like the minions and the enemies. And, there's no other like video game franchise or series where you have such like a deep bench of recognizable characters beyond just, characters you play as. No offense to Sonic.
No, we've talked about this before with Sonic fans. They agree that, like, you don't see many plush toys of like the crab enemy and the robot enemy. Every single thing in Nintendo, for good and ill, is like toyetic and marketable.
So yeah, even just seeing, like, as you say, just coins, piranha plants, thwomps, Goombas, rendered in that form is just, it touches you in a way that, reaches the parts of a video game franchise maybe maybe don't. And I think as well, just, you have the music around you, and it's just, because you have the Peach's Castle, you have the Bowser's Castle in the distance and things, and it already feels like a fairy tale theme park land in of itself. And I know that people often sort of like think of Nintendo as like the Disney of video games and such. Like, that's a very like easy thing to say, but in some cases those parallels are very clear. And it's just, I mean, it's interesting to me that it's Universal that has become it, because, we know from the past, obviously, it was Universal which was suing Nintendo for use of Donkey Kong and King Kong. And then,
now they have a Donkey Kong section has just opened up. So
yeah, exactly. And, and also like the movie The Wizard has its grand finale at Universal Studios with, Super Mario Bros. 3. So it's just kind of like, and obviously that, the Universal Studios tie-up is what led to the Super Mario Brothers movie being made with Illumination. So it's just interesting seeing, like, that how that pairing has developed, and this is like the very real physical representation of that, I guess, roller coaster ride of collaboration between Nintendo and Universal.
I mean, Universal Studios is a odd place. I went. I got a comped ticket because I believe I've mentioned this before, but a certain member of the cast of Dead End Paranormal Park, my TV show, was a Universal Studios employee. So I actually went with Luke, but also some of the cast of Dead End. And a theme park when it's free is even better. You're not even like thinking about the price. I felt a lot more guilt-free about stumbling into the Harry Potter land, which we went to test Luke's stomach, because they have a very gentle like baby coaster, and we're like, let's try this first, and then he was fine. But the thing about Harry Potter is a Warner Brothers property, and the Universal Studios in Hollywood has a big Simpsons part, which is now Fox and Disney. So they have a lot of these odd, like, well, that's not really a Universal license, but they have a big theme park, and these other places don't. So I do wonder. I had a good day overall. They also have a big Illumination land, which is kind of like now a bit tied to Mario as well, with a big Minions exhibit. We went on the Minions
exhibit.
I don't know what else to call it. It was sort of a ride. The Minions ride was the worst for the Luke's stomach, actually. There was a lot of jostling back and forth. But
I made the mistake of going on, I think it's closed now, but because I had time just before I could get into Super Nintendo World, I had like an hour for my allotted slot. I decided to go. First thing I did was ran to the edge of the park, because I hadn't been on that ride before, and I went on to like the Spider-Man 4D ride, and it was like classic Spider-Man, like, the stuff looked like the like animated series Spider-Man. But after like jet lag, no sleep, and not really having anything to eat for breakfast, and then going on this like thing where Doc Ock like grabs the thing you're in and throws you around and stuff, I was a bit like, oh Lord.
Yeah, it theme parks, you always feel a little bit sick at the end of it. I also just wanted to bring up the fact that even though it's called Super Nintendo World, it's obviously extremely Mario themed. They've added this Donkey Kong exhibit. I think some theme park YouTubers have found like this tiniest references to Zelda. There's like a stained glass window in the gift shop and everyone's like, Hyrule Land is coming. But the other little thing is the
Pikmin.
Yes, so that's a little bit Disneyland as well because of those like secret Mickeys they hide everywhere. But yeah, Pikmin the land.
That was definitely Miyamoto saying like, no, we need to have Pikmin, and it's just everyone's a bit like, but it's quite kind of just launching with Mario. Miyamoto's like, no, Pikmin. There.
I'm curious to see if there ever if other lands get added and what you think they might be.
I mean, I have my dream wish list as to what those lands would be. I think like space is such a premium, you know, with these areas. So, and I'm sure like, you know, the Universal Studios Japan and Osaka, that would be the sort of test bed for any kind of new expansions of lands. And I think obviously, you know, Zelda is an obvious one, which I'm sure would, you know, have huge queues going around it. But, you know, I sort of feel like an Animal Crossing land would be like quite a safe bet because you wouldn't even have to do much in terms of rides. And, you know, I mentioned being a fan of like Jet Set Radio before, but like a Splatoon Inkopolis kind of plaza or something, I feel like that would be a kind of easy win for Nintendo and their sort of like Japanese sort of like park, because obviously it's inspired so much by like, you know, street culture and urban culture and youth culture in Japan specifically. So yeah, those would be on my wants to have me return.
I do think the thing about Nintendo games is that, like the Mario Land at Super Nintendo World, they're so detailed and immersive that you do kind of want, if you're going to do a Kirby land, you're going to want it to be just a Kirby land and like completely detailed and whatever. But it does make me wonder, you mentioned Animal Crossing, which I agree would be absolutely lovely, but maybe this land does need some more kind of action-packed proper rides.
Yeah.
And I wonder if a kind of like an F-Zero or a Samus or something that's a bit more like thrill seekery could be good.
Yeah, or like a Star Fox kind of, you know, I mean, like one of the most sort of fun things, because I went to Disneyland in LA last year and the kind of Star Wars area there and was incredible. And like the Smuggler's Run where you're sort of flying the Millennium Falcon and it's sort of semi-interactive, like you kind of like push buttons and it makes you do stuff like shoot, you know, other villains. I don't know. I'm thinking about Mario. I'm not thinking about Star Wars right now. I don't know what they're called. But yeah, like something like that, but in like a kind of Star Fox capacity would be impressive. But, you know, I mean, I think they have to go by what games they're actually releasing and selling. Like, I don't think anyone's going to say like, yeah, let's spend all this millions on making a Star Fox ride.
Yeah.
They haven't done anything with it. Sort of like with the property in a while.
Chibi Robo Ride.
If only.
I think you can tell with the new Donkey Kong Land, like the pieces are starting to form where it's like, I think the Donkey Kong Land was announced and we're all a bit, okay, you know, Donkey Kong is popular, but not the biggest. But we sort of didn't realize that they had Bonanza coming and it seems like there might be a Donkey Kong movie or something. Like it seems like a real intentional, internal, like Donkey Kong's going to be a big thing now. And I think they have succeeded.
Yeah, I mean, like when I went, like the Donkey Kong Country area was like closed off, but you knew it was coming because there was like the outline of the barrel, I think. So you knew it was going to happen, even if you hadn't read the news or whatever. And I know that the minecart ride there is meant to be a little bit more thrill seeking. But yeah, still, it'd be nice to have something which, did a little bit of a loop the loop or whatever.
I think they announced on a Pokemon Direct this year that they're making a first sort of Pokemon park, but I think the images of it didn't particularly excite me because it does seem like an actual park with just sort of statues of Pokemon dotted within it, which is sweet, but it's not the same thing. My like dream Nintendo themed attraction is I want a Pokemon Stadium battle akin to like the Waterworld show or something, where because every time a few times I've been to see live sports and I've like sat in a stadium, there is a little part of me where I'm like, wow, it's just like Pokemon, which is very stupid of me. But I think a show where, they do an effect where they have actors on stage throwing Pokeballs, and then there's a big flash of light and smoke, and a big animatronic Charizard comes out with real fire that you can feel, and a Blastoise shoots water at the audience, and Team Rocket appear and all the lights go out. I think obviously there is an actual Pokemon Live, but I just think that would be such a popular show, and I think would be more true to the franchise than like a ride necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even something like we went to see the My Neighbor Totoro stage show, and just even having like not to spoil the Totoro-ness of the show, but just having like giant sort of like puppetry on stage sort of thing. That would be incredible. And, I think that'd be easy to sort of pull off in terms of like having the space for us if you did have it, like a Waterworld show or like a stage show performance sort of thing, which you can only get in the theme park. And
you could even have a couple of swap outs, like maybe sometimes you see Charizard and sometimes you see Blastoise, and that's my dream. That's my Mario dream. So we before we talk about the actual rides, I do want to take a little detour into Toad's Cafe. Did you go when you were there?
I did. I went into Kinopio's Cafe. And there were other kind of snacks in the park, and your popcorns and things like that. And outside of Super Nintendo World at USJ, they did have a kind of crepe sort of restaurant which had like these Mario and Luigi cap shaped crepes stuffed with like cream and fruit, which was kind of tasty. But yeah, I went to the Kinopio's Cafe, and the interior of that's quite sweet because you're sort of surrounded by these screens which are meant to look like windows, and outside you have like various toads going about their business in a little toad village. But it's more like just like a big canteen. But the food was actually pretty tasty as far as theme park food goes. I had a mushroom pizza bread bowl. So it's like shaped like a power up mushroom, and then you sort of open up the bready exterior, and inside is like mushrooms and tomato and cheese. I had a piranha plant salad on the side, and I had a question mark block tiramisu with a buttery biscuit base, and it was all very nice.
I didn't go in. Again, stomach issues, but so this is where I do think the Japan Universal Studios and the US Universal Studios do somewhat diverge, because not only I suppose is it tastes, but I feel like, not to just say everything in Japan is much better, but they have a bigger culture, I suppose, of like the Kirby Cafe and the themed cafes and like bespoke items. This sort of did the rounds. This is a Princess Peach birthday cake being sold in the Japan store. It's a perfect recreation of the cake from the end of Mario 64. This is the same item for the same price in the US version. It is a pink cupcake with a crown on it.
I mean, that's adorable in its own way, in terms of like, if I went to like a friend's birthday party and it was Mario themed and they had made
yes.
those cupcakes, I'd be like, that's so sweet, that's lovely, love it, what a great job. But yeah, that's not what I would have in mind. If I'd looked at the Japan one and went to the American one, I'd be like, can't wait to get me some game rendered quality looking Mario 64 cake.
Mario, I've baked a cake for you. And he shows up and goes, oh, thank you so much.
I came all this way for this.
The other item, which
Just
is
as well you got kidnapped.
the other slightly notorious item that I found is, I think it's called Bowser's Meatball Challenge. And this is a very low res image, but basically it's one singular 1 pound meatball in spicy tomato sauce with like a kind of pastry Bowser beside. I don't know how a meatball like that is cooked all the way through, and I kind of don't know. I don't want to know how they make it that way.
Sorry, it's called Bowser's Meatball Challenge.
I think so, because I think it's meant to be spicy and it's meant to be like too much.
Is the challenge like holding it down?
I think so.
Like keeping it in your stomach before you go on after a ride? Yeah.
But I think that says just a little bit about theme park food across the world and what you pay for what you get, I suppose.
Yes. And I mean, like, for instance, I went to in Disneyland. I did go to the Star Wars, one of the kind of cantina things, and I did have, as is my wont, a blue milk drink and some snacks with it, but they were all like kind of tasty and attention to detail. But yeah, it wasn't the same as like, just getting your popcorn or hot dogs from a kiosk sort of situation. But it's unfortunate, because it seems like it's like they've almost got it, that American one. It's just like they've put a little bit of attention into it, but just like with no kind of refinement.
Yes,
I just think it's an issue.
I think also like a problem is that we know that the menu should have a lot of mushrooms on it because it's Mario, but kids don't like mushrooms. So a lot of the items sound cool and I like and whatever, but it feels a little bit like they're, the American one still has its kind of chicken tenders and fries and stuff, but with like a Mario thing stuck in it.
Yeah. I mean, the Canopio's Cafe in Japan, I mean, that did have burgers like, Mario Burger and all that kind of stuff. And I think they just did stick mushrooms in a hamburger. But I was like, if I'm going to queue up and spend all this money, get into Super Nintendo World, I'm going to Toad's Cafe, I'm going to get stuff that looks like it came from Toad's Cafe. It's not just, a hamburger with, like a little Mario flag on it or something.
Just before we start talking about the rides, I want to talk a little bit about the walk around characters. So you took this photo of Mario and Luigi. I believe you can also meet Peach and Donkey Kong now.
And Toad.
And also Toad. So if I was to say my favorite design choice of anything to do with this park, to me, it is the way that Toad looks and moves. He is so delightfully slightly off model in a way that I think reminds me of like the 90s Mario costumes you'd see at like trade shows or whatever. He can only move his arms, and I think that's enough.
It's very charming. And I mean, when I was there, it was incredibly hot weather, and there is a reason why they escort the characters like swiftly after like 10 minutes of moving around. But I didn't actually do the Mario and Luigi meet and greet in the park. I pretty much did everything else that was available to me, but I saw them. But they have like sound bites coming out of them, and their eyes are moving and all that kind of stuff. So they're sort of like impressive / a little bit distressing.
I did see what looks like identical costumes at the Nintendo store in New York. And and they came out and they met all the kids and everything, and then an announcement said, Mario and Luigi now need to go for a spaghetti break. They will be back. Which I thought was really
euphemism?
I don't know, but I wanted them to come back with the costumes like covered in like tomato sauce and be like, haha.
I really think that they need to have a Yoshi like mascot as well. Like that seems like that's kind of missing from the meet and greet picture puzzle.
Well, speaking of Yoshi, let's talk a little bit about the rides. And before we do, I'm going to play a Japanese commercial advertising Mario Kart Koopa's Challenge.
Universal Studio Japan が送るかつてない衝撃のマリオカート。熱狂の大バトルで遊びの本能を解き放て。さあ、みんなでマリオカートへ。
In the words of Two Unlimited.
Yes. So yes, excluding the Donkey Kong Land, which we've not been to, there is essentially two rides. The first of which is called Yoshi's Adventure, and I would say is a slow-moving, dark ride, but it's I think, you know, we call them dark rides or something, but it's more of a people mover or a
travelator.
Yes, they've essentially turned the kind of monorail around the park into a ride. So you basically board Yoshi and view the lands that you've been seeing the whole time with a few extra Yoshi's Island elements.
Yeah, I queued for that for about 75 minutes. And like, I was definitely not the target audience. I'd say like even the most undemanding like 3-year-olds would probably find the whole experience incredibly boring. I mean, the queue was sort of nice enough because it was like Yoshi's Island and Yoshi's Story kind of vibes. But then because I think they needed to extend the queue, they took us out of the doorway, and then we were just in this like concrete back alley, like behind this warehouse, like housing, I guess, the Mario Kart ride. So it's like you have, and then you just go into this alleyway for about half an hour. Like,
I'm just imagining like
resumes.
Yoshi on his smoke break, like sitting on some crates, like, hey kids.
I guess you're after the green Yoshi. No one wants to ride the yellow Yoshi no more. But yeah, it is just like you trundle along, and yeah, you basically just see everything you've already seen from a slightly different angle. And yeah, you see a little bit of Baby Mario, a little bit of Kamek, and then you're done. And also, I mean, I don't know if we mentioned, but we'll maybe talk about it in a little bit, but like the power-up bands, they weren't working when I was trying to like smash the thing to say, yes, I know what color egg that is, damn it. Give me my points. So yeah, I would say like you are not missing a thing if you're pressed for time and you don't make it to Yoshi's Adventure. You can very much get on with your life.
Well, I will talk a little bit about this now. So yeah, there's these wristbands which try and gamify your experience there. They're functionally amiibos, and you can get points and things, and it can contain your high score from Bowser's challenge, not the meatball, but the Mario Kart ride. And this, I feel, is both what's great and I think slightly disappointing about this land, in that the queue going up to the ride is just as wonderful and detailed and charming as the rest of the theme park, but then it starts to become, you can kind of start to see the Nintendo meddling of well, everything has to be a game. We are a game company. It can't just be a ride. It has to be somehow a toy as well. I'm sort of loading this with my thoughts already about this ride, but I'd love to know what you honestly think of the Mario Kart ride.
Yeah, so Mario Kart Cooper's Challenge, and I would 100% agree that the queue for Mario Kart Cooper's Challenge was more enjoyable than the ride itself. And that's not to diminish like the ride, it's just that the queue is amazing.
Yeah.
And nothing can really compete because you have this like workshop, and you have like these books which are sort of like got maps of like the different courses, and you walk through like a power-ups factory which is making all the power-ups that are going to be used in the game. And then you walk into like a dressing room where it has like different outfits and helmets, like Mii costumes of the different characters like you would have seen in the Mario Kart franchise. The attention to detail, the love, the care. It clearly knows that unless you have like an express pass, you're going to be in this queue for like 90 minutes, 2 hours, etc. So it's trying to make it as like entertaining and wondrous as possible. And even just seeing like the trophies like lined up, like game accurate trophies and things. It's just a love letter to Mario Kart. And it's just, I mean, it's funny that, when thinking of how are we going to make a ride for Mario Kart is the obvious choice.
Yeah.
But it's just funny that it's like Mario Kart, and Mario Kart in a way is more successful than Mario, the platform games, like the mainline Mario games. Like it's Mario Kart, which is like what most people know. Your person who doesn't really know anything about video games on Nintendo, they'll know Mario Kart maybe more than they will Mario. So it makes total sense to make a ride about it. And I was really excited. But as you say, the gamification of the ride is what really works against it. And I feel like that's the same with like any theme park ride where it is like, where it adds a gaming element, where it's like you're shooting something or you're trying to get a high score. It's just like it neither works as a game nor does it work as a ride. And this definitely like falls between those stools in quite a kind of disappointing way, to be honest. The nature of the ride is that you get given these Mario hats, like these Mario caps, and it has like an AR visor, like goggles kind of attached to it. And you go on the ride, and it's like 4 people to a machine, as you would have seen in that trailer. And you're looking around and you're having to like use items against, I think you're Team Mario and you're up against Team Koopa, because you're kind of working together to both like drive the machine and also like throw items at opponents and also collect coins. And you do that by kind of like looking. So if you look that direction, then you're throwing your shells that way, or you look that direction, you're throwing your shells that way. But the problem is that items cost coins, I think I recall. And if you're doing a bit of a free-for-all, you're kind of throwing these shells out there, and then you run out of items and you run out of coins, and then you have to like wait until you can replenish those again. And it's a shame because you're just being sort of distracted by all this AR stuff. And if you kind of look past the AR stuff, you can see these beautifully rendered like Mario Kart themed course, objects and backgrounds and stuff. And it's just like, I would have much rather just like seen that and have something maybe more akin to like that Cars ride at Disneyland, the Pixar Cars, which I haven't seen any of the Cars movies and I never intend to. But that ride is awesome. And something like that done with Mario Kart would have been incredible. And instead we get this, which just feels, there's clearly a lot of love and detail that's been poured into it, but just, in the wrong places to make like an actual enjoyable experience, which is kind of a missed opportunity.
It's way overthought, I think. And as you say, I went to Disneyland the same week, and I couldn't care less about cars, and I couldn't care more about Mario. And the Cars ride is the Mario Kart like ride of my dream. You're literally just in a car going full speed, and the other side of the queue, and my friends were like to split between two, so it was really fun to kind of, they're in a separate car and you're properly like wacky races racing around turns, and it's so fun and exciting. And it's such a shame that this, because even if you take off the little AR visor, it looks okay, like it looks fine, but it's designed for the AR visor thing, so it's not as polished as the rest of the park. And you know, I've rarely been on a ride. Like all this sort of throwing shell stuff might be fun if you could go on this ride multiple times and get high scores and stuff, but the line is so long. It's such a popular ride, and it takes so long to load people into the ride and get them out and clean the visors and all that stuff. It's so much more effort
after all the banana peels and blooper
or just all the seizures it's causing. I've rarely been on a ride where I go from so excited to, sometimes when I don't enjoy an experience, it takes me like a second to be like, yeah, I didn't really like it, but before getting in the car I was like, I hate this, this is really awful.
Did you ever do the Mario Kart VR
no
game? Okay, so on a previous trip, there was a place called VR Zone, I think run by Bandai Namco, which makes sense because they also developed Mario Kart Arcade GP. And they had a Mario Kart VR ride in this VR Zone in Shinjuku, and I think it's now closed down. And I think it was temporarily in London in one of their funscapes, and I don't think it's there anymore. But that was really what I think Mario Kart Cooper's Challenge at Super Nintendo World was meant to be, because that was like proper VR. You're in a kind of kart thing. You are driving, you are pressing, accelerate and brake. But you are the character. And I was like, I was Luigi. And I kind of like, you have the item and I move my arm and I've got like a big glove on my hand and I'm holding a shell and throwing it at an opponent and knocking them out and then driving along. And that was, I'm sure it was like a certain amount of steering and things like that. You weren't sort of fully in control, like, playing an actual Mario Kart game. But that was so much more immersive and so much more, I think, representative of what playing Mario Kart was like. And I kind of was hoping for that. And I was like, oh, with this Cooper's Challenge ride, people will get to feel like I did when I was Luigi. I was Luigi. Alas, that's not the case. So yeah, like a real shame. But yeah.
My overriding thought about it is just that every single person in this queue can play Mario Kart at home. They could even play it in the queue if they had Mario Kart Tour or a Switch or something. What are we doing making people queue up to play a worse version of Mario Kart? What we want is to experience Mario Kart in real world. And if they wanted to do the wristbands or whatever, then I'm sure they could have still found a way to kind of give you scores or something. But the sort of transparent digital stuff flying in your face with a thing clamped to your head while you're being jostled around, it's a real shame because it's so locked in that I don't even think they can really tweak it at this stage. But this is such a fun land, and then the thing that you're going to spend 2 hours or more queuing for and experiencing sort of puts a dampener on your whole day.
It is like it's like the Virtual Boy of theme park rides. Promises so much and delivers headaches. But I will just say, like, the thing I was most sort of like dismissive of was those power-up bands, and I was a bit iffy about even getting one. But I sort of figured, look, this may be my only opportunity to ever come here. I'm just going to go for it. So I got myself a power-up band, connect to the, USJ app, see my points and see my scores. And I will say that was maybe like my biggest surprise of Super Nintendo World. I had a really fun time collecting those points because what you do, I should say coins. I'm sure it's coins, points. But you select the power-up band and you join a team. I was obviously Team Luigi. And you do these different challenges, these interactive challenges around the park, which could be something like there's like this little maze and there's a bomb and you have to solve the puzzle before the bomb explodes and you get a key. And there's another one where there's like a kind of like POW block and you have to stop the shell at the right time by punching the block, and then it sort of like gives you another key. And then if you get 3 keys, you unlock a Bowser Jr. secret challenge where you have to defeat Bowser Jr. by, it's one of those things where you're kind of like moving your hands and like your shadow on the screen kind of like is either deflecting things to like knock him because he's in one of those spinning clown cars, or you're collecting stuff. And yeah, like I enjoyed those interactive elements and the power band. And I'm sure if you were local and you went back, you'd have fun like trying to get all those different stats for doing all the different challenges. So, it's something probably more for someone who is more likely to go more than once in their life. But, I just maximize my time there as much as possible. And I really, enjoyed, having that power-up band to have that, just explore more of the world and do more things. So, if you can afford to do so and you're going and you've still got a budget set aside for all the merch in the Super Nintendo World shops too, I would sort of recommend going for that.
The merch, we're overrunning a bit, but the merch is fun. It's not just the stuff you can get anywhere. There's some really nice items based on sort of the Mario Kart branding, all the signposts and little badges and stuff. I love all that stuff. I spent a little bit too much money there. Before we wrap up, I do want to make a little detour to other Nintendo places you've been to in Japan, including one that I've never heard of and I find very intriguing. 84 Cafe?
Yes. So 84 Cafe, Hashi Cafe, I think is how it's pronounced. So this used to be, and still is, I think, like a members club run by a former Nintendo employee by the name of Toro Hashimoto, who goes by the name Chokan. And he was there in like sort of Nintendo's golden era, working as, I think, like a quality tester predominantly. And he worked on things like Earthbound, Pokemon Red and Green, Yoshi's Island, and then later things like Chibi Robo and Captain Rainbow, obscure Wii favorite. And he sort of like set this place up as kind of like a place to house all his like memorabilia, but also where like various video game developer friends would come visit and hang out and just probably talk about stuff that they weren't allowed to at work. And as a result, you have these drawings by all these video game creators like all over the wall and autographed copies of games. So you have like Zelda, you have Yoshi's Island, drawings by like Shigeru Miyamoto, that's Tezuka Takahashi. And then there's like, I think that one, there's like Koji Kondo. That's his original hand-drawn sheet music for the Super Mario Brothers Overworld theme, which he gifted to Chokan, and it has it on the wall and it's signed by Koji Kondo. So like if you're a Nintendo fan, especially if you're a Mario fan and stuff, but also there's like Pokemon stuff everywhere. The mascot for the cafe was like designed by the person who designed the original Pikachu character. So it's and what's this is a Sonic signed by Yuji Naka.
A rare Mario moment Sonic reference.
But also because he's at the place when you visit, so you can ask him lots of questions. They have like a really good friendly translator there to help you. And so I asked him, of the different games, what's like a notable contribution that you're most kind of like proud about? And he was talking about when he was working on Yoshi's Island. And Yoshi, Yoshi represent. Yoshi has like the flutter jump, where he goes like, and sort of like do like a double jump thing. But when they were playing it, if Yoshi kind of fell down like a pit, even if you did the flutter jump, like you would die, because the game would be like, you're down the pit, you're dead. So Chorkan was like, guys, like, can we make it so that if you flutter jump, then you can still get like a last chance way to get out of the pit? And they did that. They followed his advice. So he had lots of little kind of like suggestions, recommendations, basically. And I think that's what, people talk about in terms of Nintendo. It's the characters, it's the world, but also just like about the game feel, the way it plays, the way it feels, and that it feels fun to play and doesn't feel like it's too like doesn't punish you for like making mistakes sort of too much, or it doesn't feel unfair, I suppose, in terms of the gameplay.
On the screen right now, I'm showing is this sort of a menu or a map of all the contributions?
Yeah, it's like a map of all the stuff on the walls. But yeah, it's in a secret location. But if you look it up online, you'll be able to make a booking directly, and then you meet someone at a designated location once you've confirmed your booking, and they take you to the place. So you're not allowed to reveal where it is. It's in Tokyo. Wow. That's as much as I'll say.
I mean, there's some incredible names here, obviously, Shigeru Miyamoto, Koji Kondo. I think it's nice that there's a few Shigesato Itoi, Earthbound. I think there's a few interesting kind of Westerner representations. We've got Toby Fox, Undertale. We have Veronica Taylor, voice actor of Ash, I believe. And James Turner, who's a British graphic designer who's best known for contributing all the designs you don't like from Pokemon Black and White, but I love a lot. He's the king of the like, I'm going to make an ice cream Pokemon. And also creator of a wonderful game called
The Plucky Squire.
The Plucky Squire, yes. He's a good egg. So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So worth a look if you're in Tokyo and visiting. But there's other attractions, obviously, like I have not been to, but there's the Nintendo Museum in Kyoto, so maybe that's a future discussion at a certain point. And you can also, the original Nintendo HQ is now a hotel.
Wow.
It's the old Yamauchi residence / Nintendo's HQ, so where they made their Hanafuda cards. And so now you can stay there. It's called Marufukuro, and it's a fancy boutique hotel in Kyoto. So that's also on my wish list. I mean, I did, when I first visited Japan with our brother Harry, we actually just like stood outside Nintendo HQ in Kyoto, which you can see, from the freeway or whatever. And we just stood there and we were like, what do we do now? And we were like, let's buzz. So we kind of buzzed the intercom and we were like, hello. And then we said like, we were just like, we didn't bring anything. So we just wrote a little thank you letter. And then eventually some poor person came out, like probably the English speaker on the desk that day. It was just like, hello, what are you doing? And then we just want to say thank you for all the games. So we just handed them a little letter, which probably immediately went into the waste paper bin, but had to pay tribute somehow.
Of course. There's so much more to talk about in regards to our history of Nintendo, and like you say, there's so many other places of pilgrimage I want to make. I've only been to Japan once. I've been meaning to go many times, and because I'm also a Godzilla diehard, there'll be many. I'll be pulled and stretched across the country, I'm sure, to see all of the sites. But before we go, we do have one final little aspect of the show, even though I know this is our longest episode yet. Are you ready for what I am now calling the question block.
Yes.
So this is the part of the show where we ask quick fire ridiculous questions. Are you ready? You've just said yes. Okay, question 1. Who is your main in Mario Kart?
Bowser Jr. He is so naughty. I just love him. I love Bowser Jr. And Mario Kart Tour, which I seem to play every single day, he does this thing where he like slaps his bum and kind of giggles at you when he like does a little move, and I just think that's so rude. I love it. But also Mario Kart Tour, it's also just who I'm kind of like high ranked in this. So weirdly, it's like Halloween Mario, Pink Gold Peach, Nabbit, and Gladiator Donkey Kong, which I think is one of my favorite character designs of all time.
I know Mario Kart Tour was very nearly what we talked about on today's episode, but I'm not going to reserve it because I don't think anyone else will pick it. But I'm also a Tour head. So which obscure Mario character or enemy would you most like to see added to the regular roster?
Of like Mario Kart? You know what? As it's sort of like themed, let's go with like Super Nintendo World employee me outfit.
That would be adorable.
With a power-up band.
Yes. Speaking of power-ups, if you were a Mario power-up, what power would Mario get from touching you?
Oh god. I guess because I talked about like DJ and things, maybe like, I don't know, he becomes like a sound speaker system and like blasts enemies with like a shockwave kind of thing. I don't know. That sounds like something that's feasible.
I like the idea of Jet Set Mario, where if he touches you, he becomes cell shaded, gets skates, and graffitis everywhere.
Yeah, and sticks it to the man.
So by the time this episode airs, we might actually know the answer. Who is your final prediction for who is going to play Rosalina in the Mario Galaxy movie?
Sydney Sweeney.
Locking that in.
She's hot right now.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah. Hey, this might be post her winning an Oscar. If you could add one extra item to Toad's Cafe, what would it be?
You know what? I like beverages weren't like the strongest suit there. There was kind of like a nice lemonade-y thing. So just some cocktails, like some like hard bourbon. I don't know, just you know,
Wario's bourbon
for the dads. Well, I don't know, like maybe just like a nice Japanese whiskey, but like a Wario whiskey, and like the rocks, the ice could be like Wario mustaches or something.
Or garlic flavored.
I did go to a garlic restaurant and had garlic beer once, and they just put like chopped garlic in the beer. It wasn't very well thought out and not pleasant. So yeah.
So finally, I have 2 questions based on the fact that you're the co-host of Games on Film, the podcast that celebrates video game movies. Yeah. I know you have asked this question to yourselves before in the past, but right now, which video game do you still think needs its movie adaptation?
That is tough. I will stick by BioShock, even though I know it's been made and I know there are problems with even adapting it as a film, but I just think the world is so like incredible, and yeah, I'd like to see that done well, but we'll see.
And vice versa. Which movie do you still think needs its definitive game adaptation?
I think I might have mentioned it before. I don't know. Big Trouble in Little China.
Ooh, I think if you did it should look like Dynamite Cop for the Dreamcast.
Yeah, I think I was originally thinking in terms of like a Double Dragon style like brawler, but I think there's now so many adaptations done that way. You know, you have your Scott Pilgrims, you have your He-Man, I think, coming up. Obviously, you know, Teenage Turtles in the past. It's an easy way to use a license. But I think doing it Dynamite Cop style, where it is like chunky polygons and like arcadey style kind of thing, that would seem like appropriate. So yeah, let's go with that.
Obviously, I look forward to seeing those films and Games on Film. Your podcast is currently on hiatus, but it might come back. There's been many video game movies since. I look forward to at least having you, my brothers, back on to talk about the Mario movie number 2, if we feel like it. Last time was tough.
I'm enjoying it at the moment because I'm based in Sydney right now, but like Street Fighter, the new movie, is being filmed here right now. And so like all the cast are like going to Luna Park, and there's like images of like 50 Cent riding like the big mouse roller coaster and stuff. It's amusing me very much.
Well, if you would like to take a final moment to let our audience members know how to find you and check out your stuff.
Sure. Well, as Hamish mentioned, yes, the Games on the Film podcast still available wherever you get your podcast. There's 151 episodes for you to go back and listen through, so plenty of listening material if you so wish. I'm on Blue Sky, I guess mainly at Rory Steele, as you can see, but also I'm on Instagram and Letterboxd as Viewing Gum. That's like chewing gum, but with a view. So if you want to see me read my reviews of the movies I watch, or Instagram, I posted lots of pictures and videos of like recent trips and travel to Japan. So yeah, you can follow me there if you so wish. So yeah, please do.
I also recommend following Rory for playlists. You do great regular playlists, which are always a good time. Lots of deep cuts and funky stuff, especially if you kind of like Mario music. I know we didn't really talk about it, but you obviously don't feature Mario music, but that same kind of bouncy, fun time stuff. I don't know. I think they're great. Well, thank you for being on Super Mario Moment, which is a proud member of the GlitterJaw Queer Podcasting Collective. Go to glitterjaw.com for shows about Star Wars and Spider-Man and Godzilla and all kinds of other stuff. We also have a glitterjaw.com/resources page, which details sort of very important episodes of GlitterJaw shows talking about sort of serious topics, and that also contains lots of links of where you can find ways to make the world a better place, or donate to approved and verified charities. I think it's a good resource. But until then, thank you so much for playing my game, and so long, Gay Bowser!